Instead of doing all these crazy side jobs, I'm going to just build a hot dog. As soon as I built it, I sold it. They said, Dan, we got to see 400 carts within 6 months. And I said, well, how the hell am I going to do that? I remember you could buy a permit out the back door of the health department. It was so corrupt. It was so, and I didn't know these things. Donald Trump, he kicked every vet out of Midtown Manhattan by buying off all the politicians in Albany. They passed a law saying no one could have more than one permit. They called it the Dan Rossi law. So I get a call from the state assembly. We went up there and we walked into a trap. The people running this program, everything about it was a fraud. They weren't helping nobody. Money was missing, everything. I did it right, and they took it because they could.
What's up, rich friends? Welcome back to another episode of Networth and Chill with me, your host, Vivian 2, aka your rich BFF and your favorite Wall Street girly. Now listen, I have had a love affair with New York City for almost 10 years now, and one of the best and most essential parts of living in this city is the food, and in particular, the street food. Whether it's a vanilla cone with sprinkles, or a tray of chicken and rice off of a halal cart, or even just soft pretzels outside of Central Park, the trucks, carts, and pop-ups are a fan favorite, truly a Viv favorite. And among the 10,000 or so vendors out there in the city, there is nothing more iconic than a New York City hot dog. And I love a hot dog as much as the next gal, but I wanted to find out how these vendors actually make money, how much it costs to run these tiny but mighty operations, which is why I brought in today's special guest. He's been featured in Netflix's Street Food USA, written a memoir, and been declared the hot dog king of New York. Everyone, please welcome Dan Rossi.
Oh, thank you. Excited to be here.
Dan, I heard a little rumor that you actually sleep in your van every single night near your hot dog cart to get the best spot. How long have you been doing this?
It's going on 13 years.
Why do you have to do this?
Well, there was a time I didn't have to do it when they enforced the laws and things like that, but that's gone a long time ago. And I went ahead and actually opened the door for all the veterans, all the disabled veterans in the city to vend. They weren't allowing us to vend. And I just kicked the door down. And by doing that, non-veterans picked up on it. And what you have now, if you went in front of the Met now, you have about 13 carts. And I'm the only one, in fact, just not me, but my daughter too, who's a disabled vet. We're the only two legitimate people around the entire Central Park. So you can imagine what happens if I leave my spot.
Yeah.
And we did once. And it took a while to get the guy out. And that was 13 years ago. And after that day, I said, that's it. I camp out, you know.
Does your back not hurt?
What?
Does your back not hurt sleeping in the van?
You get used to it, you know.
Yeah.
I wish it was a little wider so I could stretch it. But after a while, you do what you have to do.
Yeah.
And that's
what time do you normally wake up in the morning?
I have to wake up by 7.
Okay.
Because if I'm not sitting up, they'll ticket me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I park exactly across the street. So it's 7 to 7 you can park.
Yeah, you got.
But all they all know me. I mean, you know, everyone knows me by now. They know what's going on.
Yeah.
You know.
It's been decades.
No, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Every morning I wake up and say, what am I doing? And then I remember I have to do it.
What is the average day? Just walk me through like the timeline of like, what is the average day of being the hot dog king of New York?
Well, what I do is I wait for my son-in-law to come with the truck to bring the food.
Yeah.
You know, so then we start to set up. She brings the second cart, you know, my daughter's cart, and I help unload the truck. You know, we start.
Yeah.
First thing we do is fire up the grills. It's the same thing. I mean, you could just write it down. It's the same thing. And we get it going. And by 9:30, we're ready to go. And then for me, I run away to do shopping sometimes. I have to get away from that.
Yeah.
So as much as I hate going shopping, it's almost a pleasure. You know, I go and we come back. And then we sell hot dogs, you know. And then I always have someone with me, my daughter, you know, my son-in-law. You know, even my youngest daughter, Angela. Now I have my grandsons coming in. They want a day here or two. So now it's it's something closer to me now because my family is starting to really embrace it, especially the boys. You know, they're coming in.
It's a family affair.
It's family. The whole thing is
Yeah.
family. You know.
Did you want that for your family, or did you want your kids to do something else in terms of career?
Well, I never told my children which direction to go in. I watched them to make sure they don't make mistakes. So they have to, you have to do that. But they have to have their own experiences and where they're going to go, you know. I figured I have 4 daughters, and they followed my wife. You get married and you have kids. That's you know. But they went to school. They did what they had to do, and you know. And the husbands, we helped the husbands. You know, one husband went towards the finance. We knew people. We talked to them. Another one in construction because I'm from the construction trade, you know. So, you know, that's it. But they do their own thing. But it doesn't matter. They all come back. You know, if he's not working on construction, he comes work in the shop. We build a cart. You know, I still get my hands in that. That's my real strength is building the carts, not selling the hot dogs.
You mentioned a little bit earlier that sometimes by, 11, you are itching to go and do that shopping because you just got to get away for a little bit. How much are you spending weekly on supplies and groceries and like the actual foods?
Let me give it a number. $2,000.
$2,000?
Yeah.
Wow. So the cost of goods sold is actually quite expensive.
Yeah, well,
you're spending a lot of money.
It's worse. To be honest with you, if you just go by the cart, we probably grossed more 10 years ago than we do now. Or let's say we made the same money at the end and we grossed the same amount. Food costs are higher.
Yeah.
And what the city has done, like I said before, we opened the door and we grossed more and we sold less. I mean, so we sold at a lower price. Where a hot dog was $2 and a water was $1. Now a hot dog is $4 and a water is $2, and we're making the same money. And then the food costs are just higher.
Yeah.
And the competition keeps coming. The city is completely caved in on enforcement, and that's our biggest problem right now.
Enforcing who actually has the right to have those trucks.
If you go ahead and you look at the laws and they say, well, you have a disabled veterans are allowed to have a business here. And then you go ahead and find out you're the only one out of all these. I mean, you go around, there's got to be 60, 70 carts around Central Park.
Yeah.
You find out you're the only one.
Yeah.
And then when the enforcement comes, where do you think they go? They go to me.
Yeah.
When they shut down, they shut me. It's like an annual event to shut me down. But that's because who I am,
How did you decide that you wanted your food cart to specifically be outside of the Met?
That's a nice, simple story.
Yeah.
I get a call. This is when everything went bad for us. I wasn't actually doing much. And I get a call, and there's a disabled Vietnam vet who set up his little table selling T-shirts and stuff in front of the Met. And they went ahead and they put one of those Cushman vehicles in the spot, which isn't the worst thing in the world because you can move. But this particular vet suffered PTSD to the extreme. I mean, he was in the hospital 4 years. You don't want to look at his body. He really got banged up. And I went over and I said to him, Steve, what is it? He says, they won't make me work. And I said, well, let's move you over here.
Yeah.
And he says to me, no, you don't get it. They don't want me to work. This is my spot. They illegally did it. They have no right to do that. And I got it. That the whole point of this was to keep the vets down. And I had my youngest daughter, Angela, with me to support him. And when he wouldn't move, he just left. I said, you know what? The city took away everything I had except for one permit.
Yeah.
I'm trying to hustle little jobs to keep a roof over our heads. I said, you know what? I'm going to go back and going at the hot dogs. So I had to actually borrow a cart that I had made for somebody. And when I pulled up in front of the Met, I said, you know what? I can't do this. If I come here, there's going to be a war. So I went down to 79th Street. And as soon as I did, there was a war. The cops came. They were trying to chase me. I said, look, guys, I know I'm legal. You can write all the tickets you want. And they were coming persistent 2-3 times a day to harass me. And I finally said, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. The next time you come, I move 10 feet closer to the middle. As they're writing the ticket, I'm pushing the cart. Until I was in the front. And I says, okay, now what are you going to do? And they arrested me. And that's how I got in front of the Met.
Yeah.
And the next day I came right back and nobody came near me. I knew I was right. That was it. That was a good day.
Yeah.
You know, it was hard for me to do it because from what I built up in the industry, there was no one even came close to me. And I lost it all because of my nature. I lost it. It was my fault I lost my company. You know, and to go down from having almost 500 carts on the street to having one, and here I am selling hot dogs, you know, it was, and then I just sucked it up. I said, what's wrong with this? There's nothing wrong with this. This is an honest way to make a living. Yeah. And I did it. And then there you go. And then now I'm the hot dog king.
Yeah.
You know?
Your book is titled The New York Hot Dog King. From rags to riches to less than rags. Right. Can you kind of just give me like the origin story? You mentioned earlier you had a background in construction. How did you even get into the food service business?
Well, when I'm, again, helping somebody.
Yeah.
One of the mechanics, he was actually in the shop, he was actually a family friend, a Navy vet. He had a heart attack. And he said to me, Dan, you know, I was what you call a layout man. I would take a blueprint and I would make everything. And I says, a hot dog cart. You know, I never even looked at a hot dog cart.
So he comes to you and he's like, can you make me one
he says, you know, I had a heart attack then. I'm going to get out of the business. You know, I'm going to just sell hot dogs going, you know. So, okay. I says, so I went and looked at one. This is nothing. You know, this is nothing to me. So it took time because I don't have any tools. I would make pieces in the shop, take them home, and me and my wife would assemble this little hot dog cart. So it took a few weeks, and we finally got it. I found out where you buy the wheels. I found out, you know, and he felt better. You know how you feel better? And he's now, oh, no, I don't want it anymore. I says, oh, my God, I went ahead and spent this money to buy this stuff. So I told my wife, what are we going to do with this thing? You know? So they used to have a newspaper called Byline. So it's like today you have Craigslist. It's the same thing. Like
Facebook Marketplace. Yeah.
And the next day, a guy comes over. You know, all I was looking to double my money. I said, maybe I could do that. He looks at it. He says, I'm going to get the money. Don't show it to nobody. My wife called me up and says, this is a crazy guy. He don't want me. We sold it in a minute.
Yeah.
And I said to my wife, I said, you know what? There might be a market for this. So I went up. There were like 5 other manufacturers. I called them up. I said, look, I like a hot dog cart. How long would it take to get one? And they were saying 3 months. Every one of them, because when I did it, it was at the height of the season when everybody's busy. And I said, you know something? Instead of doing all these crazy side jobs, you know, I'm going to just build a hot dog cart. And as soon as I built it, I sold it. And I said, and what happened was the guy I used to buy the supplies from, he was moving into a bigger place. And he says, you got to come in with us. We'll rent your space.
Yeah.
And I did. And that was it. That was the start.
How much did it cost to build the cart, and how much were you selling them for?
Oh, it was costing, and material-wise, it was costing no more than $200 then. This is then. And I was selling them for $600-$700.
Nice.
But I was doing something, you know, I was enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know, if
it was like a little project for you.
You know, it was compared to what I was building.
Right.
I mean, you look at these. I was in a skylight place, and there's acres of sky. The whole Met is covered in skylights. Well, I helped build them. And so you go from building these tremendous things to this little thing, and you get a little sense of, you know, it's yours. You're not part of something. You're the whole thing now, you know.
Yeah.
I liked it.
So how did you go from selling carts to having, you know, a bunch of your own?
Well, what happened was I started like in 1979, 1980, and we started to build. Yeah. You know, and we got a name. By the second year, we had the name. Yeah. We were pumping out, and it was basically hot dog and ice cream. It wasn't on these monster carts that you see today. So we were pumping like 200 carts out. I said, holy moly, we're getting there. In 1983, they put a cap on the permits. That was, you know, and I went to City Hall, my first time in City Hall, and I said, this is crazy. I said, the politicians don't understand the industry, you know? Yeah. And I said, look, you're already going to do it. We know you're going to do it. I said, but let me teach you something about our industry, and it's very seasonal. And the ice cream guys, a lot of ice cream guys would hire extra help, the college kids and stuff. So they listened to me, and they capped it, but then they created a whole new permit, like a temporary permit for 1,000 permits. And I said, well, maybe that's going to save me. It didn't happen. We couldn't sell a cart. The streets were flooded with carts because the number of permits were going down. So one customer walks in, and he was a very, very smart guy. And he went ahead and opened 2 companies with almost 400 permits. Okay. Except you had to have a pushcart to go with the permit. to get inspected. So he comes into me and he says, Dan, I'm going to need 200 carts. And I looked at holy moly, and it dwindled down to like 40 carts, And he was picking up anything he could find just to get it stick on
anything that even looked like a
cart.
He would take
he was doing it. I mean, it was really something. So I made it to 40 carts and he got it and he remembered me. They were good guys. But unfortunately, he had cancer. Found out he had cancer. So I get a call from his brother and he says, Dan, my brother's, would you like to buy the companies? I said, oh, man, I didn't have 10 cents in my pocket. I said, but I'm going to sit down with these guys, And I went ahead and we met with them, but he was going through the treatments. And, the treatments were really making him angry and stuff. So we couldn't talk. And I didn't hear anything for months. And then the brother calls me and he says, my brother passed away. Are you still interested? So I went and I said, maybe I can finagle one of the companies, but both companies.
Yeah.
So we went and we negotiated a price. And then I said, what would you want for the second company? And I mean, why? I'm here.
Why buy one when you can buy two?
If I'm going to go and strangle myself, And that was okay. He worked with me. We did notes for years and all that.
Yeah.
But I had to come up with almost 400 carts. Because what he was showing people, the city wasn't going to accept. Whatever he did, he got through. So I sat down with the health department's legal team, and they said, Dan, we got to see 400 carts within 6 months. And I said, well, how the hell am I going to do that?
Yeah.
It was just me and one other guy that in my shop. So I said, first of all, I refinanced the house. I had no money in the bank now. Where do I buy the material?
Yeah.
But I was so good with my suppliers. I always paid in 10 days. They all knew me, Dan, And I told them, it was a company, they're not around. They said, can you help me? They said, whatever you need, we're going to give you, as long as you could pay us something a month.
Okay.
And they did it. I mean, I went like $60,000 into materials, and they just did it. And then slowly but surely, I put ads in the paper. We leased push carts.
Yeah.
And for $5 a day, I would lease you a push cart with a permit on it, and you're in business.
Wow.
And that was it. And that didn't really do it. It was able to get me stabilized. But at the time, there was so much corruption going on. Mm-hmm. If you wanted a permit.
What era was this? Like what year?
This is the 80s. This is 83, 84, 85.
Yeah.
I mean.
When New York was still New York.
No, I mean, this was, and I remember you could buy a permit out the back door of the health department. It was so corrupt. It was so, and I didn't know these things.
Yeah.
Because I'm in my own little world. I'm focused on one thing.
You're a rule follower.
That's right. I'm a rule follower. So you tell, there's one thing about the military. When you're told something, you actually believe that you're supposed to do what they say. Even if they're lying to you, you believe they're lies.
Yeah.
But when I did it, I sat down with the lawyers. Yeah. I wanted to make sure you do A, B, or C, and okay, and I made sure I did that. So we went through it, and what happened was 2 things happened that really made me explode as a businessman. One is the person in the health department who was running the scheme died. Mm-hmm. That ended that connection. And then I was bringing a cart for inspection.
Yeah.
And it was in Queens, and I knew the place. And there's a lot of talk going on, a lot of, and one guy, Dan, did you hear what happened? I said, nah, look, I don't want to know what happened. I'm just, what happened the previous day is that a new inspector, brand new inspector, didn't know where the place was. So he saw a push carts going down the street. He followed them. And they went into a warehouse, and it was a black market scheme where they acted like they were inspectors, and then for so much money they would put a permit on your cart. So he saw it. He called his bosses. They had the cops down there. They killed the scheme. Yeah. So now the vendors had no way of getting permits, legitimate permits. Well,
so
guess
they
who
had to come to you.
Who had 400 carts. But I didn't take advantage of anybody.
Yeah.
This is the price. This is it.
You're a good man. I would have been like, the price is now higher.
Well, that's not me.
Yeah.
That's not me. Everybody, and the other thing is that once I knew you and you brought somebody, take the cart. When you have money, give it to me.
Yeah.
And that was it, And to me, when you're in a position like that, you're supposed to do the right thing.
Yeah.
That's the right thing to me. The people that we deal with are just coming to this country. They have nothing. They can't even speak the language.
Yeah.
So the little bit I could do to help them, and they were good. In the course of 2 years, maybe I lose 10 carts a year.
Yeah.
They would steal it. So that's acceptable,
Yeah.
I'm building a cart.
Yeah.
So I did the right thing from the beginning right to the end, and it worked, and we made money. And we made money.
You are so old school New York.
Yeah.
Like your word is bond.
That's
like
it.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's how you run business. Run business in a good way.
What good is paper?
Right.
If you're not going to live up to what you write on that paper, go ahead. Where you going? You're going to sue them? And what is that?
Yeah.
You're not doing business anymore. Now you're playing games, So,
Yeah. So this company ends up being called Precision Carts. And
actually, I had to keep the same. This is a very dangerous thing in business. You never buy a corporation.
Yeah.
Never buy a corporation. I said, well, what do I got to lose? And I knew that they were brand new corporations.
Yeah.
So how much trouble could they have gotten into? And it worked. It worked.
Yeah. So you had all of these pushcart permits, and then something happens. Something scary happens. But before we get there, my question is, how much revenue were you generating at your peak leasing these pushcarts?
About $1.5 million a year. And this is 30,
oh my God.
30 years ago. But you have to remember, we're building carts.
Yeah. And that
It costs money. And I
Yeah.
had a full crew. And a good thing about my men, when I started, all my men were Vietnam vets. No one would hire these guys.
Yeah.
And to me, I thought it was a success story that ended up in a bad way. But
Yeah.
I went ahead and, they were working. I used to work right next to them in the shop. And one day I walked in and they looked at me and they said, get out. Get out. Throwing me out of my own shop. We know what we're doing now. I taught them. They never cut a piece of metal in their life. We know what we're doing. If we have a problem, we'll call you. You made it. Go downstairs and talk to the people, customers, go talk. And that was something, that look at these guys,
Yeah.
So I made a deal with them. I said, okay, I leave here. What are you going to give me at the end of the week? And we were making those coffee carts that you see. Now we're talking about a 4 or 5 man crew. They said, we'll give you 3 carts at the end of the week. Do you know how much work that is? And I said, I'll tell you what, if you can give me 3 carts by the end of Thursday, you take off Friday. And they would be killing.
Yeah. But like, Friday's off. We don't work Fridays.
And the other part was that I depended on myself. I didn't depend on a customer.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was hustling anymore to get customers. I had the permits, I had the carts, and I was doing it for almost nothing. I mean, who goes into business for $5? Who?
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
So
wouldn't advise.
Everything worked.
But we got to get to from rags to riches. The riches.
Yeah. Now we're at riches.
Now we're at the riches part. What ends up happening?
Okay. What happened was they took all the disabled vets that were selling merchandise. To see the guys with the hats and stuff, and they kicked them out of Midtown Manhattan.
Why?
You want me to name politics?
Let's name.
Donald Trump. He kicked every vet out of Midtown Manhattan by buying off all the politicians in Albany. And that was in 1990, 91. By 1993, now can you look at it this way?
Yeah.
The only people who couldn't vend in Midtown Manhattan were disabled vets. Anybody else could vend but them.
Why is that?
He got in a confrontation with a veteran in front of his building. He actually went to the guy and says, what are you doing here? And the guy says, I'm a Vietnam vet. And he started to say something, and the Vietnam vet told him where to go. And we're Vietnam vets. I mean, we're in Vietnam. You think you're talking to me is going to shake me up? I mean, come on. So that's what started. But that didn't get me involved in.
Yeah.
Because these were general vendors.
Yeah.
And they were very, if they
selling
were
merch, not food. Okay.
So what they did was, the state wasn't that stupid. They made this organization called the Fifth Avenue Association, which is the most powerful group in the city. And they said, look, we'll do what you want, but you have to do something for these men and women. So they said, okay, we'll put together a training program and all this. It was all nonsense. If I'm the one who kicks them out, you think I'm going to help them come back?
No.
So what happened was they went ahead and were going to convert them from general vendors to food vendors.
Okay.
That's where I come in. I'm a food vendor.
Right.
Now, nobody knew I was a disabled vet. Nobody knew I was even a vet, but except my guys, our world. So I get a call from the state assembly, And they say, Dan, we understand you want to help these guys. What could you do? I said, well, I don't know. I said, why don't you come up? So there were 2 other veterans who owned companies in the whole city. We were it. We were the veteran end of the business. So we went up there and we walked into a trap. The people running this program was complete fraud. Everything about it was a fraud. They weren't helping nobody. Money was missing, everything. And I walked in there thinking that I was coming up there to save their program.
Yeah.
And they attacked me. I mean, you couldn't imagine the things they were saying to me. Why are you against vets and all this stuff? And I just got up. I said, everybody sit down. Everybody sit down. I'm a Vietnam vet. I'm a former Marine sergeant. To even suggest that I would do something against the vet. All my men are vets. Who told you this? And they all looked at this bum that was running the show. And I said, this guy, I found out that he's cheated these guys out of money and everything else. And I came here to help him to put this together. He was so petrified of what was going to happen that he turned it around. You know how you do. You make the good guy the bad guy. And that's what he was doing. It didn't work because you can't do that to me, I remember after that happened, they sat me down with one of the deputy mayors. And they said, Dan, you back away from the vets, we leave you alone. If you don't, we bankrupt you. And I said, you do what you got to do. You ever carry a dead Marine? I did. You can't talk to me like that. You can't even, So that 2 weeks later, after that meeting, that was it. They came in after me. The press just demonized me.
Yeah. And what did they do exactly to shut down your business? They
passed a law saying no one could have more than 1 permit. They called it the Dan Rossi law.
Ugh.
It was the phoniest thing. And it didn't happen really quick because they had to buy off the council members.
Right.
They pressured them, whatever they
course.
do. And slowly but surely, they got their numbers. And guess who was the mayor at the time? Rudy Giuliani. I mean, that's like having your little puppy dog. You're telling him what to do when he jumps and does it. I hate to say it, but, I never would say anything bad about you because somebody told me you did something bad.
Right.
Or made it up. I'm just a demon. But you see their history. Yeah. If you read it, you know what kind of people I was dealing with. So
we are in the business of naming and shaming these days.
Well, these people, they deserve it. Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump are probably 2 of the most anti-veterans I've ever met. Because when this was going on, we had one assemblyman who was helping us, Ron Tochi. And I get a call from him, and Giuliani's got guys cursing out the vets, the lobbyists and stuff. What are you talking about? Why are you cursing these guys? It was just to do anything they could to overpower the politicians in Albany, But it didn't work. I got them back. And they said the price for getting them back was your company. As the former Speaker of the Assembly told me that. You have to be punished for what you did going to Albany. And I said, well,
because you embarrassed them.
I embarrassed them, and that was it. But they took everything. And then you end up in a court system, and forget that. Unless you can get the greatest lawyers in the world, forget it. You can't win. And, it doesn't take long. I mean, I only was up there for a few years, and so you don't accumulate. Well, you get there. You're at that point where you're starting to accumulate. But where's it go? And that was it. And then my wife had a stroke, and that was the end of me. That kind of took all the strength out of me.
Yeah, of course. And ultimately, you were able to, I don't want to say, overcome, but really navigate that massive downturn in your life, which had to have been incredibly challenging.
What I was doing is, I remember, we got to the point where we lost our home. Yeah. And I had to borrow I didn't even own a car. We sold our cars. Yeah. And I had to borrow a van. And me and my wife is coming out from a stroke. And she's in the seat. And we had nowhere to go. We're in the van. Yeah. And I said to her, she said, so what? We got each other. Imagine a sick girl saying that. I said, if she only knew how bad things were.
Yeah.
We ended up living with my aunt, my 90-year-old aunt who passed now, God bless her. And then we get the word, friends, Dan, I need a bathroom. I need a kitchen. Yeah. And I know how to do everything, Yeah. And I was so depressed, but as soon as I picked up that hammer, everything came back. Yeah. And in the beginning, I was taking her with me. And I saw her sitting in the chair, well, And it was just, it took, I can't explain the words
Yeah,
of what I did to this poor girl, you know. But
she loved you.
Well, she's a tough girl, you know. And we did it, you know, and then a little bit at a time, got an apartment.
Yeah.
And then we started to bounce, find work here, and then that's when the vet called me, and that changed everything to go back in that direction.
Yeah. The vet called you, and then I actually want you to explain a little bit about the legislation that you tapped into to get your very coveted spot outside of the Met, because apparently, like, getting that one permit is very challenging these days. Can you explain to me how you were able to get the one and get the spot and have your current hot dog cart?
This is what I did for the vets. What they did was, and they took the 498 permits away. They left me with one.
Yeah.
So my permit is still one permit in that company.
So you got to keep the one.
You get to keep the one. But what I did, they weren't giving vets permits. What they did is they're really sneaky. And I got to say it's just not the politicians, it's the city lawyers. Mm. What they do is whoever they're talking to in the big end, the real world who runs this city is real estate. They run this city, whether you want to believe it or not.
No, I believe it.
Texas is oil, over New York it's real estate. And they tell the mayor what to do.
Yeah.
And all they have to do is tell the lawyers from the city what to do, because the politicians rely on the lawyers. Mm. So you get the lawyers. So what they did was, when they put that cap in 1983, they said it included veterans. Impossible. We go by state. We got a state license that says I can sell food. And if I need a permit to sell food, you got to give it to me. Mm-hmm. If there's a freeze on general vending license, there's a freeze on permits. If you're a veteran, they lift the freeze and they give you your license. Well, why aren't you lifting the freeze for the vets on the? And that's what my daughter. Now here's how it happens. My daughter, she graduated college, and she's getting involved with education and stuff. And she sees me when I'm doing. She says, "Dad, I'm going to come and help you." She's a former Marine sergeant too. So I said, "Well, if you're going to come and help me, we got to get you a permit." Mm. Knocked on the city door. They said no. I said, "I've had it with lawyers. We're going to write it ourselves." So we wrote a lawsuit. Get a phone call. "Dan, we're going to give you the permit." Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
What are you telling me? That
you scared them?
Veterans are entitled to permits now? Mm-hmm. Is that what you're telling me? You mean all the concessions around the park are actually vending in veteran locations? Is that what you're telling me? Mm-hmm. That you've been cheating the veterans for 20 years out of their right to vend and making money off of it? Mm-hmm. Oh, no, we're going to give them permits. But then they stopped it. They wouldn't let us go. What they did was, they're so shady, is that when they wrote the permit, they said you can only use it outside the park. Now, the veterans have no strength. Mm-hmm. I'm the veteran's strength. Mm-hmm. These guys, they could never do what I've done and fighting them. They're down. If you ever go to a veteran hospital, you don't want to go again. Yeah, it's very depressing what these men are going through. And they don't have the fight. And before, what I told you about in the military, you get told what to do and you believe it. Well, that's what they did. They lied to them all. Okay, I can't get a permit. Yeah. So the big thing was, not only did I get the veterans permits, but now they got locations, and it makes me public enemy number one, because I don't know, maybe 30, 40 concessions around the park that equals $1 million that the city just lost because Dan Rossi said give them, and just the locations in front of the Met.
Yeah,
there was a concessionaire there with 4 carts, paying maybe $400,000 or $500,000 a year. It goes by the contract. People say it's that, but it really goes by the contract. So if it's a 3-year contract, it's so much money.
I think I just finally understood, because I didn't realize that they were paying consistently for these permits, but veterans were supposed to get them for free.
That's right. And every one of those.
That's criminal.
Absolutely. Beyond criminal. Why do you think why do you think they annually shut me down? I have to be punished for everything I've done. I had a guy, a health department. I was in my little shop cleaning up or making something, and an inspector comes in, and I said, I usually know when an inspection is going to happen. He said, "No, I didn't come to inspect. I just came to meet you." I said, you came to meet me? He says, yeah. He says to me,
Sketchy.
I'm shipping over to the police department. I'm leaving the health department. You know, he took past whatever he did. He says, and I wanted to meet the worst vendor in New York. And I said, what? And he said, yeah, you're infamous. Your name goes in there. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, I never even met these people, you know, but that's what they've done. They've demonized me still because look how much what I've done to them.
Yeah.
I'm exposing it all the time. Right now, they still will not give a non-disabled veteran a permit. Why? It's the same state law. It covers both of us. It doesn't just cover disabled vets. It covers, and that's what they're so petrified of me for. And that's why they keep punishing me.
They're afraid of losing that money.
Yeah, that's where they're going to go.
How much is like, if I'm not a veteran, like how much does it cost to like get a hot dog cart permit?
$200.
Thou? A year?
$200.
Oh, $200.
Yeah, what $100? $200.
$200.
Yeah.
Okay. But wait.
For 2 years. For 2 years.
Yeah. But then what, like you have to pay for the certain locations?
No, there's no price tag on a location. You go.
Got it. So just the frustration from the government was because they were losing out on those
money.
On those permit costs.
Well, here's what you're looking at two different things. If you're on the street, it's just finding a location and setting up.
Yeah.
There's no, but on Parks property,
Parks
that's
property.
Big. That's where their scheme came in. What they said was, you know what, we could bid out these locations. I'm going back a long time, so I know what happened from the beginning. In the beginning, guys were set up. There was no concessions,
right?
But they saw a value in it. And the value is only there if you keep the people who are entitled to be there not there. Meaning the vet can go there, but if we don't give them that permit to go,
they won't go.
They can't go. And and there isn't a number right now in New York City vending food. If I could find 5 disabled veterans running their business, that's a lot. They can't do it. The ones that I got permits for, they leased them out. You know, they went to the black market, they leased them out. Because to them, they're making a score, if you know what that. They're making a few bucks, and they really don't care, you know. But those of us who are doing it right, you know, it's
a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and there's no numbers. You know, right now my cart should be generating $600,000 a year. It's doing half of that because how do I compete? The guy next to me is selling $30 hot dogs. You know, because where we are as tourists, and they price you on how you speak and look. So if you're a tourist, you're buying a $20 hot dog, no question about it. Where we have our price list up there, you know, hot dog was $4 and this and that. None of them. We're the only ones in the whole place that tell people how much things cost.
What gives you the energy to keep fighting?
Well, you know, when for one thing, I guess my nature. You know, if I'm wrong, I don't fight. But when I'm right, then
you got to prove a point.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's not even that. But what are you doing? You know, the cops know. Yeah. The cops used to come when they didn't want to. They used to leave the tickets before I got there. Yeah, give this to Dan because we don't want to hear Dan. And it really got to it. I am who I am. You know, and the bad part about it is that I could have early on joined the city and abused the vets. I could have did that.
Yeah.
And I'd probably still be in business right now because I would have been one of them now.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I remember telling my wife, I said, you know, they're going to come at us. They're going to take our shoes. I mean, we can't win. You know, we're not dealing, there's not a fair fight. You know, they got the politicians, they got the judges, they got everybody. Yeah. And she says, let them take our shoes. She says, I know you. You're not going to let nobody do this to you. So what are you even asking me for?
Yeah. You
know, and then the worst happened to her. You know, I was able to handle the fight, but, you know, she saw what was happening to the family. And now you know, the kids were being affected. Everybody is affected.
Did that ever scare you? Like having had no money, made a good amount of money, back to no money? Like what was the calculus in the back of your mind about your personal life?
Well, what happened was I was trying to hang on to things. And when my wife got sick, I just made a decision that we had no money and I was talking to like a social worker and they said, they'll put him in a hospital. And that ain't happening. That ain't happening. So I dedicated the next 2 years of just staying with her.
Yeah.
And things just started to crumble. I mean, I didn't have 50 cents in my pocket to buy a newspaper. It was just crumbled. And it got to that point where, even when I was taking a therapy and all this, physical therapy and stuff, I told him, I says, you keep her so doped up that you can make her walk, you teach her. She forgets what you're doing as soon as, and then they changed the medication. I saw she was getting a little better. And then I started to say, we got to eat. I mean, when they put that foreclosure sign on it in front of our house, I mean, my kids were crying. And I just said, it's just wood.
Yeah.
We didn't have it before. Okay, we'll have it. Don't worry about it, But I had to start to get strength back inside of me. I completely lost that push because I said I did it right. I did it right. And they took it because they could. You understand? They were in a position to hurt people just because they felt like hurting people.
Yeah.
But I got back.
Yeah.
As soon as I pick up the hammer, I start.
This is a story with a happy ending.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think this is nothing. We haven't stopped there.
Yeah.
We're going.
I mean, you're talking about not stopping, but what does retirement for Dan Rossi look like?
I've never considered retirement
ever?
In my whole life. I think that if a person is doing something and is accumulating all this knowledge, you have to pass it on. That's why I remember if my grandchildren, my grandsons or even my granddaughter was small and they see me hammering something, Grandpa, could I help? I would start the nail, do it. I never chased the kid away, never.
Yeah.
And I give them all the time in the world. Do it. Because what I know, I don't want you to start at the beginning. Yeah. I had one of my grandsons, my oldest daughter lives in Texas, so they came up for a couple of weeks. And I had my grandson and his friend came and they took a welding course. I said, is that right? Come with me. I cut the pieces to a chassis and I made them weld the chassis.
Oh
and
my
as
gosh.
they were doing it, and I saw something wrong, I said, now I want you to do it this way. I'm teaching him. And after a while, I didn't have to look at them. And then when I checked it later, I started yelling at them. But that's me.
Yeah.
I have to pass it on. I have to pass it on. And so what's this with retirement? What am I going to do? Watch TV?
Yeah.
Come on.
No, okay.
I golf.
Yeah.
I never picked a golf club in my life. What is come on.
Yeah.
You got to pass it on. You owe it to them. You owe it to them to do it.
What does it mean to you to be the New York hot dog king?
Well, it's helped me a lot with the media. The social media, because they hesitate to come at me now a little bit, the city. Even though they did last year, they shut me down for another month. But it feels good. I mean, I'm there and I'll be just, if I have my son-in-law working, I'll be sitting in the van or sitting on the steps and people come by, can we take a picture? Mm-hmm. I mean, from countries, I never even heard the name of these countries. It's really nice because if they're coming with a warmth, and it's a good thing. They're happy. A lot of them like the idea that I stood up against all these odds and I beat the city and I beat everybody. I beat two mayors. Not only Giuliani did I beat, but I beat Bloomberg too. Mm-hmm. So they like that. The little guy beating up on him.
David versus Goliath. We all like an underdog story.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick lightning round. These are just going to be fun-filled questions. Answer as quickly right off the dome, okay? Best hot dog topping combination.
Oh, that would be spicy mustard.
Okay.
Sauerkraut, and just a little bit of onions. That's the best. That's a New York hot dog.
Okay. Biggest business mistake you've ever made?
Oh, boy. Oh. The biggest business mistake I ever made, I think, was when things got bad and they'd taken things and we had to hire lawyers, that I actually went along with the companies grew up, and I knew they were going in the wrong direction. I knew the lawyer was the wrong guy, and I had no choice. So what I should have did was get up and walked.
Yeah.
Me, I do things my own, and in this time, I got bad advice from one lawyer, and that was it. To be involved in a lawsuit, because I could have did it better myself, to be honest with you. Yeah. And they just sold us down the tubes. That was the end of it.
If you weren't the hot dog king, what would you be doing?
What would I be doing? Maybe I'd be the carpenter king. I'm a sheet metal worker.
Yeah.
I would have ended up, doing. Well, when I started to realize, that I had to do things, woman needed a kitchen.
Yeah.
So I went and put it in the kitchen. Another woman needed a bathroom. Another one wanted their basement refit. I would probably have in a construction outfit right now. That's where it went, but vending is where I belong.
Yeah.
You got to remember when they took my company.
Yeah.
And after they took my company, what they were doing was systematically closing all these streets here, all around. Mm-hmm. So I battled them. And we went into court, and they owned the court. Right away, the city owned the court. So I said, the only way to do this is by people. And I organized a tremendous rally right on William Street here. And we shut down their programs closing streets. In fact, the city came to me and said, Dan, please don't mention Giuliani's name, please. I said, this bum over here started this trouble.
Yeah.
This whole thing, and now he's whimpering away. So I didn't leave the industry. Even though they took everything from me, I saved the industry. These streets are open because of me.
Yeah.
And that's it. I remember all the news stations. It was every station in England and France, they were all interviewing me and stuff. What the hell's going on here? But that amount of pressure, city caved. Politicians cave in a second. So I was able to save the industry.
Yeah.
And I know I did. In fact, all the old timers know I did.
Yeah. Saved vending. 3 words to describe your relationship with New York City.
Love and hate.
Oh my God, I guess love and hate. Okay, all right. What is your final piece of money advice for our listeners who are building their own empires?
Well, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You got to put something aside.
Yeah.
I always had a cushion. You
always had a cushion.
Always keep a cushion. Don't throw it all into the pot.
Yeah.
And take it. And the one thing that I did when I started, I come from a pretty large Italian family. I would speak to my uncles. They went through life, and one of my uncles, gave me good business advice. Seek out that advice. Yeah. Don't think because that's an old timer sitting in a chair, he don't know anything. They know a lot. You got to seek out the advice of the old timers. They know it because you're going to make the same mistakes they made.
Yeah. On that note, tell everybody where we can find you and your delicious hot dogs.
Oh, we're right 82nd and 5th, right dead smack in front of the Metropolitan Museum.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. Tell us, is there any other last word of wisdom you'd like to leave?
Oh, never give up.
Never give up. What a perfect way to end. And cheers. Cheers, our dogs.
There you go.
Cheers. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Networth and Chill, part of the Vox Media Podcast Network. If you liked the episode, make sure to leave a rating and review and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Got a burning financial question that you want covered in a future episode? Write to us via podcast@yourrichbff.com. Follow Networth and Chill Pod on Instagram to stay up to date on all podcast-related news. And you can follow me @yourrichbff for even more financial know-how. See you next week. Bye!